Welcome back to the Iakos channel, and I'm Rod. Hey, we got a different project in the shop, and I haven't made a video for a while because really what I've been working on is similar to a lot of the other videos, but I got a request from the local paddling club to make some Iakos. Now, you might say, what's an Iako? Well, that is the proper term for the arm that extends out from a racing canoe or outrigger to hold the ama, which would be the float on the outer portion. We've got two here. They're different shapes because the stern Iako and the bow Iako are slightly different. So we're going to be laminating these up and then gluing them together on a form. So that's what we're going to do today, is make the form, maybe cut the lumber and get these laminated up, and then it's just down to finishing. So let's get to it. Thankfully, they are just slightly under 8 feet long when bent. So I have cut out a couple of pieces of plywood here. So I've laid it down on the plywood here, and I've just traced the outline of the two of them, marking them stern and bow. Now my plywood is not exactly perfectly flat, so we're just going to put a 2x6 underneath here, screw it down to kind of hold these forms nice and level. Piece of plywood is 14 inches wide. I'm just roughly measuring center here so I can drive some screws through the center and hit that beam underneath. 2x6 might be a little overkill, but you know, some of the 2x4s we get around here sometimes are outside and they're pretty warped. So I lay this down on the center. Maybe throw a clamp on there. Say that's pretty close. So I've set my stop block at 4 inches. We're just going to cut off a whole bunch of these pieces. So how many of these I'm going to need, I'm not really sure. So let's just... Pretty strong glue, but I'm not going to trust it to hold it under clamping pressure. Let's get this 2x6 out of my stands. Come on. So, just lay it on its side, I think I can figure out where to drive these screws. I think we'll get 2 per block. With the vertical blocks attached to the plywood, I'm just going to cut. So I've cut these down to be 1 inch thick, and I want to have a bunch of pieces 2 inches to raise my Iakos basically up off of the plywood. So these little blocks I made 1 inch high, we are going to glue to the base of the plywood here, or on the plywood at the base of each vertical station or mold form. And the reason being is then we can raise it up, and I can also, well, we'll see when we laminate it together, I'll be able to actually get under there and clean a little bit of the squeeze out epoxy. That'll just reduce, clean up later. And then lastly, since we're gluing this up with epoxy, we need to protect all of our mold from anything sticking to it. Now, I'm not a big fan of this tuck tape stuff. I mean, it does make a very good sort of mold release. However, you know, it really is nasty stuff to get off if you ever need to. But in this case, I don't suspect that's going to be an issue. So I'm just making sure first of all that it's tucked right into the corner and up and around the top. Alright, with the 2 molds made, I'm ready to cut some lumber. Now the current ones have 2 layers of red cedar on the center, probably, I don't know, half an inch thick. So the current ones have 2 layers in the center, which are 3/8 thick. So, well, it looks like we need at least 4 pieces of lumber, 3/8 thick. 2 in the center being red cedar, and 2 on the outer perimeter being yellow cedar. Now, the issue that they're having with these, of course, is they do sit outside. They don't have a lot of place for storage indoors. They get dropped, they get banged, just as I've done. Corners get worn off, and then water gets in, and we get to start to see a little bit of, I don't know, blackening of the lumber inside. I mean, this one to me looks like it's still in pretty good condition. I suppose this is the one they've given me for the template. However, they find that, you know, they just don't last as long as they could or should due to the fact that they're just not able to maintain them well. Now we're going to glue these up. I'm going to slap a whole lot of epoxy on the finished product and then possibly some varnish, but we'll see how long they last. Now the advantage for them is that they're paying me to build these, but you know, I'm factoring the time that it takes me to build this mold, and the mold will be theirs to keep if they have a place to store it. I think they kind of said that, you know, maybe I could keep it and keep making them for them, but I don't know where I'm supposed to store this myself. In a small shop, it's just going to possibly sit outside and get a little damaged as well. So, you know, I'm going to offer it to them, and if they don't want it, or they don't seem to find a place to keep it, that's their deal. But I cannot keep molds for every single thing that I've built over the years, because there'd be no room for boat building. Alright, I think it's sort of time. Let's do a dry run before throwing some glue onto these and see how much force it's going to take to actually bend it. And will it bend? That would would be, of course, without breaking the mold. If I put all the pressure onto one block, I may just rip that block out. So let's just see. Of course, with epoxy all over there, it's going to be a lot slipperier and easier to line these up. But I think it's going to be doable. It's going to work, Ken? Is it going to work? I think so. Yep, I think so. Alright, well, I'm going to glue these up tomorrow. It's been a long day. Alright, it's another day in the shop, and today we're going to laminate these up with some epoxy. I'm going to be doing this outside to get a little bit of background noise from traffic. But I think I'm just going to set them up on some sawhorse so I can roll on and spread out some epoxy. Now that I have all of the epoxy on, I've already done the first one. It's now time to start to bend it over and bring it into the forms. Again, we're just going to kind of use multiple clamps so that I don't just break that brace out of there. You might notice also that I had a hole, when I did the dry fit, I didn't show it on the camera, but I drilled a hole through the end here and I put a dowel in, and that's going to prevent everything from sort of sliding this way and that way until I get it into position quite nicely. We're already in up here, but I don't want to clamp too tight up here because everything needs to slide laterally as it bends. Third clamp onto here, assist. We'll just keep adding clamps. Go here. Lastly, we got to get it all aligned down to the bottom block. Some of these pieces are not exactly the same thick or width. I'm just checking underneath that it's pretty well settled down onto the horizontal block, which in hindsight I should have made these horizontal resting blocks down here a bit bigger and sticking out, so everything was just going to slide in on them, because when I cut them I was supposed to put them in this way and I glued them in that way, which means that this outer yellow cedar piece is really not coming down and touching anything, so I'm just kind of aligning it with the rest of them. And remember that I've kind of made this probably a good 1/4 inch wider than necessary because I'm going to just clean it up. And the last thing I'm going to do is drive out that dowel. I don't really need it glued in there. I mean, it's probably going to be cut off anyways. So the nice thing about it being raised up is I can get underneath and clean for the most part between the blocks some of the epoxy squeeze out, which, you know, we've got good epoxy squeeze out happening all the way around, and it's just going to mean if I can wipe some of it off now, it's less sanding and scraping tomorrow. So this is all going to be left overnight. We're in a heated shop. I did use a slow epoxy because gluing it up outside, which is where I kind of needed to do, it's pretty warm. It's not a hot day, but the sun is definitely warm. So I wanted enough time to get them laminated, glued, clamped, without anything kicking off. And that's that. It is the next day, and now it's time to take these clamps off and just see how well the structure remained to the proper shape. We might have a bit of spring back, I'm not sure. I'm hoping not, but it's not going to be a huge issue as far as functionality. Well, a little bit of spring back, maybe 1/4 inch or so in the center here and on the ends. So in hindsight, if I was to do it again, I might try to remember that or move these blocks and overspring it a bit or overbend it a bit, knowing that it's going to spring back a little bit. But I think she's going to be solid and perfectly functional. It's a pretty solid structure. I don't see any gaps. So I think we have about the same amount of spring back on both, but didn't stick to the molds. That's a good sign. Next step is going to be I'm going to just take the power plane and plane one edge, then I can run it through the thickness planer to get to the right height. With the 2 Iakos laminated up, I have sanded, I have round over edges. I really didn't show that in any videos. It's pretty standard stuff as far as woodworking goes. I then coated each unit, and these are the 2 new units here, the yellow cedar. Coated them with 3 coats of epoxy, sanding with between a few coats, getting as smooth as possible. We're still going to sand and add some varnish, but now I need to add in the holes and dowels on the end here. So the hole on the base is pretty much center of the end block here. So I'm going to do the same on mine. So that's the center longitudinal. And the center across, we have, what is it, these 3.5 inches? 3.5, 2 3/4. So that will be dead center there. And that hole, which I'm assuming just rests into some sort of peg on the racing shell itself, is 1 inch. And it's not very deep. So just to be sure that my Forstner bit centers nicely, I'm just gonna Knock out a little hole there. And then on the top side, there is a dowel. So these are held in place by centering on the hole in the bottom, and then there's just a rope wrapped around. Looks like center. It's about 3 inches from the end. Oops. Let's get some tape on there. Now I'm going to start with a pilot hole because these look to be horizontal or perpendicular to the flat surface is what they are. So we're going to start with the pilot hole and we're just going to go as best we can. Hopefully if I put a square on there. Do that. And the dowel going in there is 5/8. I think I'm just going to keep bumping the hole up a bit rather than go with a large bit right away. And then we'll just glue in some dowels. Okay, with epoxy in there, soaking in. With epoxy in the hole, soaking in, I'm now just going to thicken up the rest and push these into place. And with that, the Iakos have been completed and have been delivered back to the rowing club. I still do have the molds here because they're looking to have me make another set, which I won't be able to get to for a little while ago. And so with those done, I've got a new project coming in the shop in another month or so. I've got some repairs I'm working on right now, but a new project's coming up. We'll talk a little bit about that later. So thank you very much for watching. If you do like the video, do give me a thumbs up, or maybe even consider subscribing for the next project. Thank you very much.